The observation chamber hummed with tension as Senior Arbiter Krelix adjusted his optical sensors for the 14th time. His secondary limbs trembled, a biological response he couldn't quite suppress. In 300 cycles of conducting trials for the Galactic Concordance, he had never witnessed anything quite like this. The human child is still alive. His assistant, Prin, whispered through her translator device. Her crystalline skin flickered with disbelief. Krelix didn't respond. He simply stared through the reinforced viewing panel at the nightmare unfolding below. The trial had begun 6 planetary rotations ago. Standard procedure, 23 species, one simple objective: survive. The Concordance didn't care about weapons, proficiency, or tactical genius. They wanted something far more fundamental. They wanted to see which species possessed that indefinable quality, that spark, that separated those who would thrive in the galaxy from those who would crumble. Every decade, they selected representatives from newly discovered civilizations and threw them into what they politely called an assessment. What they really meant was hell. The testing ground stretched for kilometers. Dense vegetation that could swallow a transport vessel whole. Predators that had been gene-modified to be even more vicious than their natural counterparts. Environmental hazards that shifted without warning. Floods, fires, toxic gas clouds that appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. 23 entered. Currently, 4 remained. And the human, impossibly, was one of them. She shouldn't be breathing, Krelix muttered, more to himself than Prin. Look at her biometric data. Elevated heart rate for days, inadequate nutrition, minimal sleep. By every statistical model, she should have collapsed on day 2. The girl, designation Terra Human 047, but who had screamed her name as Mira when they'd processed her, couldn't have seen more than 12 solar cycles, possibly 13. The humans had been incredibly aggressive during first contact, refusing to submit to the Concordance protocols until the evaluators had simply taken specimens by force. The Concordance didn't negotiate. They assessed. Mira had brown skin, marked with what appeared to be decorative patterns, dark hair that she'd somehow braided despite the chaos around her, and eyes that held something Krelix found deeply unsettling. Not fear, calculation, but the truly bizarre part? The creature beside her. Identify the animal again, Krelix ordered. Prin's fingers danced across her console. The human called it Brutus, classification from their home world, Mellivora, Capensis, common designation, honey badger. And it's not attacking her? Negative. All scans indicate a symbiotic relationship. The creature appears to be protecting her. Krelix watched as Mira crouched behind a fallen tree, the honey badger pressed against her side. The creature was small, absurdly small compared to the threats surrounding them, maybe 15 kilograms, covered in black and white fur that looked almost comical, until it moved. A Korthian warrior, twice Mira's height and 4 times her mass, came crashing through the undergrowth. The Korthians were renowned hunters. Their home world was a death trap of competing predators, and they'd evolved to dominate every single one. This particular specimen, identified as Raketh, had eliminated 3 other contestants already. He spotted Mira immediately. His mandibles clicked with anticipation. Easy prey. A small human child. He'd save her for last, toy with her a bit. He took 1 step forward. The honey badger exploded into motion. Krelix had reviewed thousands of hours of combat footage. He'd seen warriors who could punch through steel, creatures with reflexes that defied physics, beings who seemed to dance between heartbeats. But he had never, in all his cycles of observation, seen anything move with such concentrated violence. Brutus hit Raketh's leg like a missile. Teeth sank into flesh. Claws raked. The Korthian howled, tried to shake the creature off, but the honey badger held on with a grip that suggested it had been welded there. Blood, thick and purple, splattered across the ground. Impossible, Prin breathed. That creature is a fraction of his size. Raketh swung his blade, a wicked thing he'd fashioned from scavenged metal and bone. It should have split the honey badger in half. Instead, Brutus released, dodged with impossible agility, and went for the throat. The Korthian stumbled backward, panic replacing confidence. He swung again. Missed. The honey badger climbed him like a tree, ignoring the blows that connected, ignoring the chunks of fur being torn away, focusing on one objective: kill. Mira watched from behind her tree, her expression neutral, not celebrating, not horrified, just watching. When Raketh finally collapsed, his throat a ruined mess, Brutus returned to her side. The creature was injured, bleeding. But it simply pressed against Mira's leg and waited. She touched its head gently. "Good boy," she whispered, the translator barely picking up the words. "Rest now. I'll keep watch." And somehow, impossibly, the honey badger seemed to understand. It settled down, still alert, but allowing itself a moment to recover. "Run the psychological profile again," Krelix ordered. "Something's wrong with our data." Prin worked quickly. "Sir, the profile is consistent. The human child exhibits normal stress responses, elevated cortisol. Fear markers are present. She's terrified. Then, why isn't she running? Why isn't she hiding?" The remaining 3 contestants were a Vorlaxian, a species of aquatic predators with intelligence to match their brutality. A Sen warrior, insectoid, and incredibly fast. And a Threll, one of the few species that could manipulate gravity itself. Each of them had killed. Each of them had survived. Each of them was currently hunting the others. And Mira, somehow, stayed off their sensors. She moved through the testing ground like smoke, never staying in one location, never leaving tracks that lasted. When food was scarce, she found plants the scanners hadn't even catalogued, testing them carefully, eating only after feeding small pieces to Brutus first. She's using the animal as a biological detector, Krelix realized, for toxins. Affirmative. The honey badger has an incredibly robust digestive system. If it survives consumption, the human knows the food is safe. That's actually quite clever. On day 7, the environmental systems triggered a firestorm. Standard procedure. The flames raced through the forest, consuming everything. The Sen warrior tried to outrun it, failed, and died screaming. The Vorlaxian found water, submerged herself, and waited. The Threll simply flew above the devastation, his gravity manipulation letting him hover safely. And Mira? Mira dug. Her hands bled as she clawed into the earth. Brutus helped, his powerful front claws excavating dirt faster than should have been possible. Together, they created a shallow depression, and Mira covered them both with wet leaves she'd gathered, then layered dirt on top. "She's going to suffocate," Prin said. "Maybe." But Mira didn't suffocate. She'd created small air pockets. She'd positioned herself where the ground was naturally cooler. She'd calculated angles and heat dispersion and a dozen other factors that no 12-year-old should have understood. The flames passed overhead. The temperature in their shelter spiked to lethal levels. And somehow, impossibly, when the fire had burned itself out and the observation drones scanned the area, they found her, unconscious. Burns on her arms and legs, but alive. Brutus was awake, licking her face, making soft sounds. "How?" Prin asked. "How is this possible?" Krelix pulled up Earth's assessment files. He'd barely glanced at them before. The Concordance had classified humans as a moderate threat. Tool users, social creatures, decent problem solvers. Nothing special. But as he read deeper, his optical sensors widened. Humans had conquered their planet not through strength or claws or venom. They'd done it through something far more terrifying: persistence. When something tried to kill them, they studied it, learned its weaknesses, adapted, and then they killed it back. Their planet had tried to murder them constantly. Ice ages, droughts, predators that could tear them apart without effort, disease, starvation, and humans had survived every single attempt. More than survived, they'd thrived. They'd spread across their entire world, adapting to every environment, learning to eat things that would kill most species, befriending creatures that should have been their predators, like honey badgers. Krelix watched as Mira woke, assessed her injuries, and immediately checked on Brutus. The creature had burns too. She used water from a salvaged container to clean the wounds, then tore strips from her clothing to bandage the worst of them. "The attachment," he muttered. "It's not just survival strategy. She cares about the creature." Humans form emotional bonds across species, Prin read from the file. They domesticated hundreds of animals on their home world. They take creatures that should be wild and make them family. Family, Krelix tested the word. That's unusual. Day 8 brought the Threll into direct confrontation with Mira. He was called Vex, powerful, confident. He'd been watching her, studying her patterns. He knew she was weak, injured, easy prey. He descended from above, gravity distortion, making him nearly impossible to track. He landed 10 meters from where Mira was attempting to start a fire. She looked up, slowly. Didn't run, didn't scream. "You're the human," Vex said, his translator making his voice sound mechanical. "I've heard about your kind. Fragile, weak. You shouldn't have lasted this long." Mira stood, keeping herself between Vex and Brutus. "Maybe. No, maybe. You're going to die here. But I can make it quick, if you beg." She smiled. It wasn't a happy expression. "No." Vex activated his gravity manipulation. The air around Mira compressed. She gasped, fell to her knees. The pressure increased. Her bones should have been crushed. But Brutus launched himself at Vex with a scream that didn't sound like it came from anything natural. The Threll tried to swat the creature away with a gravity wave. It should have worked, should have sent the honey badger flying. Instead, Brutus pushed through the distortion, ignoring physics, ignoring reality, focusing only on protecting Mira. He hit Vex's face. Claws found eyes, teeth found flesh. The Threll screamed, releasing his concentration. The gravity field collapsed. Mira sucked in air, her vision clearing. Vex threw Brutus off, but the damage was done. One eye was gone. Blood poured down his face. Sharp! Vex never saw her coming. She hit him once, twice, 3 times. Each impact methodical, precise, not frenzied, just necessary. When Vex stopped moving, Mira dropped the rock and collapsed beside Brutus. The honey badger was injured again. Maybe dying this time. "Please," she whispered, tears finally falling. "Please don't leave me. Not like the others." The human child wasn't a warrior. She wasn't a predator enjoying the hunt. She was just scared, alone, desperate, and still fighting. Brutus moved slightly, pressing his head against her hand. "That's right," she said, her voice breaking. "We're not done yet. We're going home, both of us." One contestant remained, the Vorlaxian, Merix. She was the most dangerous of all of them. Older, experienced. She'd participated in 17 planetary conquests before being selected for the trial. She'd killed hundreds. And she was hunting Mira. Day 9. The final confrontation approached. Krelix leaned forward in his observation seat. This shouldn't be possible. The human child cannot defeat a Vorlaxian warrior. Prin checked her readings. Agreed. Statistical probability of survival, 0.03%. Should we intervene? Negative. The trial must proceed. Below, Mira was preparing. She'd fashioned weapons from the environment. Sharp sticks, rocks, crude traps, using vines and leverage. Brutus, barely able to stand, stayed by her side. Merix emerged from the water, her scaled body glistening. She was 3 meters tall, muscles like coiled cables, teeth designed to tear through armor. She saw Mira and laughed. The human child. I've been saving you. I wanted to see what made you special. But I see now. Nothing. You're nothing. Mira didn't respond. She simply held her sharpened stick and waited. Merix charged. Fast. Impossibly fast for something that size. Mira dove aside, rolled, came up running. She triggered her first trap. Vines snapped tight, catching Merix's leg. The Vorlaxian roared, tore through them like paper. But it bought seconds. Mira used them. She led Merix toward her second trap. This one was better. A deadfall, carefully balanced. When the Vorlaxian passed beneath, Mira cut the vine. Rocks crashed down. Not enough to kill, but enough to slow. Enough to injure. Merix emerged, bleeding, furious. Clever, but not enough. She grabbed Mira before the girl could dodge, lifted her high. Those terrible teeth opened wide. And Brutus, dying Brutus, bleeding Brutus, impossible Brutus, climbed Merix's back and bit down on the back of her neck. The Vorlaxian shrieked, dropped Mira, tried to reach the honey badger. But Brutus held on. His teeth found the spinal cluster, found the nerve center, found the kill, a point that shouldn't have been accessible. Merix collapsed, twitched, went still. Brutus fell beside her, not moving. No! Mira screamed. She crawled to the honey badger, cradled him. No, 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 Brutus. Please. We won. We won! The creature's eyes opened slightly. His tongue licked her hand once. Then, nothing. Mira held him and screamed. Not a sound of victory. A sound of grief so profound that even Krelix felt it through the observation panel. Trial complete, Prin announced. 1 survivor. Terra Human 047. Designation, Mira. Send the medical team, Krelix ordered. And, he hesitated. Send them gently. The extraction team found her still holding Brutus. They tried to take the body. She fought them with the last of her strength. They had to sedate her to get her aboard the transport. When Mira woke in the medical facility, she was alone. Clean, healed, empty. Krelix entered her room. His translator converted his words into something she could understand. You survived. You passed the trial. The Concordance recognizes your species as viable for integration. She stared at him with those dark eyes. Where's Brutus? The creature expired. Its remains have been processed. Something flickered across her face. Not anger. Something colder. You killed him. The trial killed him. We simply observed. You watched. You did nothing. You let us suffer for your test. Krelix had no response to that. My people, Mira said softly, when they find out what you did, when they learn you took children and threw them into hell, they're going to come for you. Your species lacks the technology to threaten the Concordance. Now. But humans don't forget. And we don't forgive. You taught me that. She lay back on the medical bed. I'm going home. And I'm telling them everything. Krelix left the room, feeling something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Unease. 3 cycles later, the Concordance released Mira back to Earth. They expected gratitude, recognition that she'd been elevated, that her species had been judged worthy. Instead, they got silence. And then, slowly, quietly, humanity began to prepare. Krelix would later mark this moment as the beginning. Not the beginning of Earth's rise to power, not the beginning of the human Concordance war, the beginning of something far more terrifying, the beginning of humanity's long memory. And in his quiet moments, when he reviewed the footage of the trial, he always stopped at one image. Mira holding Brutus, that small, impossible creature that had defied every prediction. That honey badger had been everything humans would become, too stubborn to know when to die, too fierce to accept defeat, and absolutely, completely, terrifyingly loyal to the only thing that mattered, each other. 15 solar cycles passed before the Concordance heard from humanity again. Krelix, now promoted to Grand Arbiter due to his exceptional documentation of the human trial, had almost forgotten about the small girl who'd promised vengeance. Almost, but those eyes haunted his rest cycles. That quiet certainty. The first indication something had shifted came from the outer territories. A Concordance mining operation on Talus 6 reported unusual activity. Ships, human ships, but not the primitive vessels they'd possessed during first contact. These were different. Sleek, fast, armed. Impossible, Prin said, reviewing the sensor data. She'd remained his assistant, her analytical mind invaluable. Humans shouldn't have advanced this rapidly. Our projections indicated they'd need at least 50 cycles to develop interstellar combat capability. Krelix studied the footage. The human vessels moved with purpose, forming patterns that seemed almost organic. What are they doing? They appear to be mining, same as us, but they're not attacking. Yet. The incident repeated across a dozen systems. Human ships appeared. They established operations. They ignored Concordance warnings. When military vessels were dispatched to remove them, the humans simply relocated. No aggression, no confrontation, just constant, irritating persistence. The Concordance Council convened. Krelix was summoned to provide his assessment. Explain the human situation, Elder Throst demanded. The ancient being's sensory stalks quivered with annoyance. Why are they defying our territorial claims? They're testing boundaries, Krelix replied. Seeing how far they can push before we respond with lethal force. Then we should oblige them, eliminate their vessels, remind them of their place. That would be unwise. The chamber fell silent. No one contradicted Elder Thross. Krelix continued anyway. Humans don't respond to intimidation the way other species do. Aggression makes them more determined, not less. They'll see any attack as justification for escalation. They're primitives. What can they possibly do? Before Krelix could answer, alarms shrieked through the council chamber. Multiple alerts. Concordance stations across the galaxy reporting simultaneous system failures. Communications disrupted. Defense grids offline. Transport networks frozen. What's happening? Elder Thross demanded. A technician's voice crackled through the emergency channel. Sir, we're under attack. It's digital. Something's invaded our networks. Every system connected to the primary grid is compromised. Source? Unknown. The code is like nothing we've encountered. It's adapting faster than our countermeasures. It's learning. Prin pulled up the analysis on her console. Sir, look at this. The attack signature. It's carrying an identifier. Krelix felt his internal temperature drop. There, embedded in the malicious code, was a simple message. A video file. He opened it. Mira's face appeared. Older now. Maybe 27 cycles. But those eyes hadn't changed. Hello, Arbiter Krelix. Remember me? You said my species lacked the technology to threaten you. You were right. Then, but humans are excellent learners, and we had a very educational experience in your trial. The image shifted. Now it showed a laboratory. Dozens of humans working on projects Krelix couldn't immediately identify. You taught us that the galaxy doesn't care about fairness, Mira continued. That survival requires adaptation. So, we adapted. While you were busy administering trials and maintaining your empire, we were busy becoming something you never anticipated. We reverse-engineered every piece of Concordance technology we could steal, trade for, or salvage. We studied your networks, your protocols, your weaknesses. The scene changed again. Now, it showed a memorial. Hundreds of names carved into black stone. At the top, one name larger than the others. Brutus. We remember everyone we lost during your evaluation. Every child you took. Every family you destroyed. And we decided something. We're going to compete. The transmission ended. Within hours, the Concordance regained control of their systems. But the damage was done. Confidence was shattered. Every species under Concordance authority had seen how vulnerable they were, how easily humans had penetrated their most secure networks. "This is a declaration of war," Elder Thros announced. "Mobilize the armadas. Humanity must be eliminated." "That's exactly what they want," Krelix argued. "They're goading us into attacking. They've prepared for it." Prepared? They're one planet. We're an empire spanning 10,000 systems, and they're counting on that arrogance. But the Council voted. War was declared. The first human conflict, as it would later be called, began 3 cycles later. Concordance battle fleets, massive and overwhelming, jumped into the Sol system, expecting quick victory. What they found instead was a nightmare. Earth had transformed. Orbital defense platforms covered every approach. The moon bristled with rail cannons. Mars had been converted into a massive shipyard, and the asteroid belt, that collection of worthless rocks, had been weaponized into a killing field. But the real surprise wasn't the defenses, it was the ships. Thousands of them. Small, fast, maneuverable. Nothing like the standardized Concordance vessels. Each one seemed unique, designed for specific purposes. And flying them were humans who moved like they'd been born in space. The battle lasted 6 planetary rotations. When it ended, the Concordance fleet retreated, having lost 40% of their ships. Human casualties were minimal. Krelix watched the after-action reports with growing horror. They're not fighting like any species we've encountered. There's no central command. No predictable strategy. Each ship operates independently, but somehow they're coordinated. How? Prin asked. I don't know, but it's effective. The war expanded. Concordance forces expected humans to defend their territory and nothing more. Instead, human ships appeared everywhere, raiding supply lines, disrupting communications, freeing species that had been subjugated by the Concordance. And wherever they went, they left messages. Videos, testimonies, recordings of the trials, of children being thrown into death arenas, of the Concordance's brutality disguised as evaluation. Species that had served the Empire for centuries began to question, to resist. Some openly rebelled. The humans are destroying us without major fleet engagements, Krelix reported to the Council. They're using information as a weapon, turning our own member species against us. Then we silence them, Elder Thros snarled. We show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us. The Concordance assembled the largest military force in recorded history. Every available ship, every weapon, they would jump to Earth, bypass the defenses, through sheer numbers, and glass the planet. Turn it into a monument to Concordance power. 3,000 vessels. The combined might of an empire. They jumped into the Sol system and found it empty. No defense platforms, no ships, no resistance. Just Earth, quiet and unprotected. It's a trap, Krelix warned. It has to be. Of course it's a trap, Elder Thros replied. But what can they possibly do? We have overwhelming force. The fleet approached Earth, weapons powered, ready to deliver extinction. And then, space itself seemed to tear open. Human ships emerged from jump points surrounding the Concordance fleet. Not thousands, tens of thousands. They'd hidden their true numbers, scattered them across the galaxy, and now brought them all home. But these weren't the small raiding vessels from before. These were battleships, carriers, dreadnoughts. In 15 cycles, humanity had built an armada that matched the Concordance. Incoming transmission, Prin announced. Mira's face appeared again. She wore a uniform now, Admiral's insignia. Behind her, Krelix could see a command deck bristling with activity. "You came to my home to murder my people," she said calmly. "That was your second mistake. Your first was thinking we'd forget what you did to us. To Brutus, to all the others." Elder Thros activated his communication. "Surrender, human. You cannot win. Even matched in numbers, we have experience. We have discipline. We have centuries of warfare to draw upon." Mira smiled. That same unsettling expression from the trial. "You have doctrine. We have desperation. And humans fight differently when protecting their families. Then die with your planet." "No, I don't think so." The human fleet opened fire, not at the Concordance ships, but at specific points in space between them. The weapons weren't conventional. They were something new. Reality seemed to ripple where the shots connected. "What are they doing?" Elder Thros demanded. Krelix's sensors provided the answer, and his blood turned cold. "Jump disruption mines. They've trapped us here." "Impossible. That technology doesn't exist." "It does now." Mira's voice filled every ship in the Concordance fleet. "You wanted to evaluate humanity? To test our worthiness? Here's your evaluation. We're the species that domesticated wolves into pets. That turned thunder lizards into chickens. That took a world trying to kill us and made it a garden. We're the species that bonds with creatures we call honey badgers and makes them family. And when you hurt our family, we don't just fight back. We evolve." The battle began in earnest, ship to ship, weapon to weapon. But something became clear quickly. The humans weren't trying to destroy the Concordance fleet. They were targeting specific systems, engines, weapons, life support. They were capturing ships, not destroying them. "Why aren't they killing us?" Prin wondered. Krelix understood. "Because that's not how they think. They don't want genocide, they want justice." The tide turned. Human pilots flew with a reckless courage that bordered on suicidal, but their ships kept coming. For every one destroyed, 2 more took its place. They absorbed losses that should have broken their morale, and instead grew more determined. Elder Thros's flagship took heavy damage. His shields failed. Human boarding parties breached the hull. Krelix found himself face to face with human soldiers. They moved through the ship with practiced efficiency, neutralizing resistance without unnecessary killing. When they reached the command deck, Mira herself walked through the blast doors. She looked at Krelix. Recognition flickered. "Arbiter, it's been a long time. You've exceeded all projections. Thanks to your trial. You taught us exactly what we needed to know. That the galaxy is dangerous. That mercy is weakness. That survival requires becoming something harder than we were." She approached Elder Thros, who slumped in his command throne, injured but alive. "But you were wrong about one thing. Mercy isn't weakness. It's the hardest choice of all. And humans are very good at hard choices." "You'll kill us," Elder Thros spat. "Just like we would have killed you." "No. We're going to do something worse. We're going to forgive you. We're going to show the galaxy that there's another way. That strength doesn't require cruelty. That evaluation doesn't require death." She turned to her soldiers. "Secure the prisoners. Medical treatment for the injured. All of them." The battle ended. Of the 3,000 Concordance ships, 2,400 had been captured intact, 600 destroyed. Human losses were significant, but acceptable. Most importantly, humanity had broadcast the entire battle across every communication network in known space. Every species saw what happened. Saw humans fight like demons to protect their home, then show mercy to defeated enemies. The political ramifications were immediate. Species across the galaxy began demanding reform. The Concordance Council was dissolved. Elder Thros and the other architects of the trial system were arrested by their own people. A new governing body formed, the Galactic Assembly, and humanity was offered a seat. Krelix found himself reassigned, no longer an arbiter, now a liaison. His first task was working with the human delegation. Mira met him in a conference room on a neutral station. She'd brought something with her, a small container. "I thought you'd want to see this," she said, opening it. Inside was a biological sample. DNA. "Brutus?" Krelix asked. "We cloned him. Took 15 years to perfect the process. We couldn't save the original, but we could make sure he lived on." She closed the container carefully. "Every human ship now carries a contingent of honey badgers. We've genetically enhanced them, made them smarter, tougher. They're part of our crews now. Full members. That's insane. That's human. We don't leave family behind. Not anymore." Krelix processed this. "The trial changed you. It clarified us. You wanted to know what made humanity special? It's not that we're the strongest or the smartest or the fastest. It's that we refuse to accept that anything is impossible. You tell us we can't survive? We prove you wrong. You tell us we can't compete with an empire? We build one ourselves. You tell us to forget those we've lost? We carry them with us forever." She stood, preparing to leave. "The galaxy is different now, Arbiter. The age of trials is over. The age of cooperation has begun. Not because you chose it, because we forced you to choose it. And if we resist? If elements within the former concordance try to return to the old ways?" Mira's expression hardened. "Then we remind them what happens when you threaten humanity's family. We're not conquerors, Krelix, but we're very, very good at making sure threats don't threaten us twice." Years passed, decades. The galaxy transformed. The old hierarchies crumbled. New alliances formed. And at the center of it all, quietly but persistently, humanity guided the change. They didn't rule. They facilitated. They connected species that had never cooperated. They shared technology freely. They taught diplomacy, backed by the unspoken understanding that they could, if necessary, defend themselves and anyone under their protection. Krelix, in his Twilight Cycles, wrote a comprehensive analysis of humanity for the historical archives. His conclusion was simple. We believed the trial would reveal which species deserved to join the galactic community. Instead, it revealed our own failures. We tested for strength through cruelty. Humanity taught us that true strength lies in the bonds we form. In the family we choose. In the mercy we show even to those who showed us none. The human child and her honey badger walked out of that trial alive, but they didn't walk out unchanged. They became symbols. Proof that survival isn't about being the biggest predator. It's about being too stubborn to quit, too loyal to abandon your companions, too determined to accept defeat. Humanity earned their place in the galaxy not by passing our trial, but by surviving it and choosing to be better than those who designed it. They are the species that looks at impossible odds and says, "Watch me." They are the species that turns enemies into allies and makes family out of creatures that should be wild. They are the species that remembers, and the galaxy is better for it. Krelix submitted his report and retired to a quiet colony world. But even there, he kept one file on his personal console, the video from the trial, Mira holding Brutus. That moment of absolute grief transformed into absolute determination. Sometimes, when younger beings asked him about the old days, about the concordance and the trials and the war that changed everything, he would show them that image. That, he would say, is humanity. Not in their ships or their weapons or their technology, In that moment, when a child refused to let go of her friend, when she decided that the galaxy's cruelty would not define her, when she promised that things would be different, and then spent her entire life making sure they were. Mira eventually retired too, though not to quiet contemplation. She founded an organization dedicated to ensuring no species would ever again be subjected to survival trials. The Brutus Initiative, she called it. It spread across the galaxy, teaching conflict resolution, building bridges between hostile species, and occasionally, when words failed, providing military support to those who couldn't defend themselves. On her death, at the age of 83 Earth years, representatives from 400 species attended her memorial. They came to honor the human who had survived the trial, defeated an empire, and then chosen peace. Her final request was simple. She was buried on Earth, in a garden dedicated to all the children who'd been taken for the trials. And beside her grave, a statue. Not of Mira herself, of Brutus, the small, impossible creature who'd taught the galaxy that size doesn't matter. That courage isn't the absence of fear. That family is worth dying for. And that sometimes the most dangerous thing in the universe is something that refuses to know when it's beaten. The inscription read simply, "Here lies the companion of humanity's heart, small in body, infinite in spirit." He taught us that survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about being too stubborn to quit. We remember. We honor. We carry forward. For Brutus, for all those who were lost, for the future we fought to create. Humanity endures, and across the galaxy, on ships and stations and planets, humans and their allies read those words and understood. The trial had been survival, but the victory was choosing what to do with that survival, creating something better, building something lasting, proving that the cruelest test can produce the kindest result, if you're stubborn enough to make it so.